Hello, I am Jamie Buckland with the West Virginia Few Families United for Education, and I am going to be talking today about the Hope Scholarships Individualized Instructional Program. So I think I have clicked all of the buttons I'm supposed to click to activate us and get us going. I'm sure many of you are armed with your questions already, and so feel free to drop those questions into the comments as I go along, and my team will be texting those to me so that I can make sure and pay attention because we're streaming in quite a few places, and so my team will be paying attention to those comments and texting those over to me to make sure that you get your answer. I tend to kind of live in the weeds. If you're not familiar with the work of the few or with my work, I'm kind of known for wanting to be down in the weeds in the pragmatic stuff, the practical stuff. And so when we look at using the Hope Scholarship at home with the individualized instructional program, I thought it would be helpful to actually talk about assessments, the day-to-day, how do you design your instruction as either the instructor of your children, or maybe you're going to be the facilitator of the instruction, and you're going to outsource and have other people partner with you to educate your children. So I just thought it would be helpful to kind of give some practical tips. And so we're just going to get started. And if you have questions, you can drop them in the comments and my team will text those to me. So feel free to do that. So if you don't know, I'm Jamie. I've homeschooled here in Southern West Virginia for 16 years. So I guess we're over halfway through 2019. So my eldest lives out in Missouri, was homeschooled all the way from first grade through graduation, and now is self-sufficient and lives out in Missouri. And then my 19-year-old homeschooled all the way through, never attended anything else. My eldest was in public preschool and kindergarten. And then my 19-year-old, I graduated last year, and she is enrolled full-time in cosmetology school. Super proud of her. And then I have an 11-year-old who is still under the homeschool exemption. So exemption C here in West Virginia, the traditional homeschool exemption. And then I have my Hope Scholar, Mr. Easton, who is my 6-year-old, our kindergartner, who is under the Hope Scholar IIP exemption. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and some distinctions between the Hope Scholars and the homeschoolers, because I think a lot of our audience in West Virginia is familiar with homeschooling. And so they're looking for information to help them kind of distinguish between the homeschool law and the Hope Scholarship law, so that they can just better understand what that entails and make sure that they are compliant and they're satisfying what they need to satisfy. So as most of you probably already know, I'm not an attorney. I am a mom in Southern West Virginia who's been at this game a minute. And I founded the West Virginia Few just over a year ago to remove barriers, guide parents, and support providers through the transformation of K-12 education in the Mountain State. If you've joined us from outside of West Virginia and you're curious about ESAs and what that means to have a portion of funding to help you educate at home, welcome. Your questions are welcome here as well. So let's get started. The Hope Scholarship is an exemption, right? It's an exemption from compulsory attendance. So when a child has turned 6 by July 1st, they are required, the state of West Virginia says that they're required to enroll in full-time public school. So you can be in charter school or in public school, and that satisfies compulsory attendance, and that's required by the law by the time they're 6, right? But if you don't want them to enroll in full-time school, whether in person or virtual, then you can be exempt from that And the code allows us, a couple of exemptions. We tend to focus on the more popular ones. But one way to be exempt is to go to non-public schools. There are two actual exemptions for non-public school or for a private school. And then the traditional homeschool exemption is exemption C, right? And homeschoolers can be exempt and satisfy the law either through an approval method or through filing a notice of intent. I don't know anybody who does the approval. Most everybody submits a notice of intent. So there's just been a lot of confusion surrounding the Hope Scholarship process because it's also a notice of intent under exemption M as in Mary, Hope Scholarship exemption. And to be exempt under the IIP, the Individualized Instructional Program, you submit that notice of intent to your county and you participate in the Hope Scholarship program. So it's kind of a two-component method, if you will. So for those that are not enrolling in a private school to use their Hope funds in a non-public school or in a private school, they fall under the IIP. And the assessment piece that you must do in order to be compliant and be able to renew is to instruct your child in the 5 required subjects and assess your child in those 5 required subjects. So it's math and reading, language, science, and social studies. So actually, when you complete the application for the Hope Scholarship Program, you actually check and agree to the terms and conditions. And you're saying if you choose the Individualized Instructional Program, you understand that you're in a partnership with the Hope Scholarship Program, and you're agreeing to those terms and conditions, and you will instruct your child in those 5 subjects, and you will assess them. Under that assessment option for Hope Scholarship, you can do it 2 different ways. You can take a standardized test that's been nationally normed within the last decade, or you can have a portfolio review done, which is basically a compilation of the child's work for the year for you to demonstrate their academic progress. That is, can't think of the word that they use, but basically it's showing that there is academic progress that is commensurate is the word that I want to use, but I don't know if that's right, with their age and ability. Okay. So lots of questions about portfolio reviews, and I have used a portfolio review for my homeschoolers throughout the last 15 years. And we also test. So I'm going to talk a little bit about assessment and just kind of like a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of the philosophy behind how I assess and I talk with my hands. Is that driving you guys crazy? So we'll talk a little bit about that and how you satisfy that. And you could do it through testing or through assessments. I wanted to do this today because one way to assess is through the standardized test, and CHUV, Christian Home Educators of West Virginia, I hope I didn't butcher that, statewide homeschool organization, has been extremely gracious in opening up their testing, and they use Iowa Form E, I believe. I don't believe I'm mistaken on that. They have opened that up and are serving Hope Scholars through that testing. And so if you want to sign up to be tested through CHUV, you may have an in-person test site in your area, or you may just choose to order the test. Their deadline is in 2 days. And so I wanted to do this today so that if you need to get on there, and we will be linking Jessica or Jen, if you're watching, you can go ahead as I talk about links. You can go ahead and start dropping them in comments for people, but we'll link to the CHUV testing link so that you can get on there and order. Just make sure if your child is a Hope Scholar, make sure that you do mark the Hope Scholar box so that you can be sure you're under the proper exemption. We want to be very careful to distinguish between traditional homeschoolers under exemption C who do not get any money and are exempt from compulsory attendance and exempt from any type of partnership with the state, from Hope Scholars who do receive their state portion. So a couple of questions, I'm going to check them here. We're trying to get our portfolio together for review. Where do we get that reviewed? Well, we have the answer. I'm so excited. We're going to share this with you as well. We have been talking with portfolio reviewers across the state, and we've compiled a list of reviewers that are ready and waiting to partner with you and review your child's assessment. The due date for those is June 8th. And so the state law requires us to have those submitted by June 8th. So we've got some time, but it is testing season. It is upon us, right? Traditional homeschoolers are usually testing sometime between March and April so that they can complete those tests and get the results back. Traditional homeschoolers need to submit their assessments by June 30th. Again, this is why it's so important to understand the distinctions between traditional homeschooling and Hope Scholars who are under the IIP. So there's that question. We will get you a link to reviewers. They need to be a certified teacher in order to review your portfolio, and then that gets submitted to the county. So that question was Jess Shoemaker. Katie asks, we are at a Hope approved school since the beginning of the year. We received the email to approve our child at the school. What is the next step for us at the school? Thanks for all you do. Well, you're very welcome. It is my pleasure to do what we do. Email me. That's going to be your best bet. If you'll just shoot me an email, Katie, we will give you your next steps and try to make sure that you're pointed in the right direction. Jennifer Lawson, once you take your child out of public school, if you decide after a school year that the Hope Scholarship isn't what you want, is there a path to get the child back into public school? There sure is. So if at any time you want to end the child's participation in the Hope Scholarship Program, you may do so. And those any unused funds actually go back to the public school that you're going to attend. So there is a whole process for that. And yes, you're welcome to email us and we can direct you in the path that you want to go. And I'll just give this caveat. Yesterday, I had a couple of parents say, you know, we see you on Facebook. You're very available. We appreciate you being approachable and available, but often we'll ask questions and you just direct us to your inbox. And so I want to give kind of a little disclaimer here as to why we use that method, why that is our standard operating procedure. And it's really twofold. The largest reason is because understanding your school options and making decisions and making informed decisions can get pretty detailed. And when you are making such nuanced information widely available on social media, it can be read by anyone and they may not understand which educational profile they fall under. They may not understand some of the nuances and they'll just take any answer that I put out there and they'll apply it to their situation. And what happens when you have a program like Hope, where you have the treasurer's office that is doing an amazing job in trying to answer questions and administrate the program, and then you have Step Up for Students, the EMA team, trying to fulfill their contract as the vendor of the program. You have the Department of Education that is vetting and ensuring that students have completed their 45 consecutive calendar days without missing too many, what have you. County boards receiving notices of intent. We have all of these moving pieces with the Hope Scholarship. And so there's already like a welcomed environment for kind of craziness and misinformation and confusion. And so our team is just super aware of that. And so we actually don't want our Facebook group to become a place where there is, well, I think that you can do this. So if I've deleted your comment before, forgive me. Some people might think that I'm a gatekeeper. That's not what it is. The reality is I am pretty particular about information. And because I've been the parent who acted on some information that I received 15 years ago, thinking we could do something that we actually couldn't do because somebody who thought they knew the answer gave me the answer. I'm just pretty particular about it. And so that's why we don't put a lot of information that could be misconstrued or could add confusion on Facebook. That's why you email. The second reason is that really, in order for us to even give you the information that's applicable to your situation, we actually need to ask you some questions. And we typically require that you fill out a Google form so that you can check a box saying that you understand that Jamie Buckland isn't an attorney and it's not like unlawfully doing anything, and you understand that we're just trying to guide you and provide you with information and not necessarily advise you or give you some type of legal advice. So that's why we do things the way that we do them. So if you're ever like, oh my gosh, Jamie Buckland, just give me the answer, just know that I have a whole staff and we are trying to clear my inbox and get to the point where we can answer your questions super promptly, and give you the customer service that you have grown to expect from the few. So there's that disclosure on information. Jamie, Jamie at wvfue.org will get you the most accurate response that you can get. If you shoot me a message in Messenger, you're going to get a message that says email me. So that's what I can offer up for that. All right. So I love this question. Can you test your own children without going through CHUV or other organizations? If so, what is the process? Yes. My favorite resource, if you're looking to test outside of other test centers, is CN testing. And in fact, last night I composed a whole email about testing options. And so if you will email me, we will get that to you. And it links to CN, and you can have someone proctor the test online. And there are some options to test your own child. The law says that you can test your own child as long as you follow the publisher's requirements for that test, or the administrators of that test. So if it's Iowa's test, you have to follow what they say about being the proctor for that test. If it's the Stanford 10, you have to follow what they say. So email and you'll get a link with all of that information. But yes, there are ways to test outside of a testing center. You guys are on it. This is so fun. Okay. And me, I think you got my email on that. If you didn't, we have a problem because I did send it. Megan, will there be a pathway for eligibility for Hope Scholars to participate in WVSSA school sports? Who am I? I'm Jamie Buckland. Of course there will be a pathway. Just kind of slightly kidding on that. Yes, we're working on it. We are working on it. I talked with Bernie Dolan of WVSSAC yesterday and have been able to work with him over the years for homeschoolers to have SSAC access. And he is actively talking with members of the Senate to figure out how we're going to do it. So nothing's set in stone yet, but it appears that it will look very similar to what I and a couple other people worked on a couple years ago for homeschoolers. And so, possibly a step down of requiring 4 classes, although I'm not really keen on that. So I'm kind of pushing against that a little bit. But then for returning Hope Scholars, purchasing that 1 course. So we're working on it. Could you use Hope funds to cover extracurricular activities such as music or sports lessons? Music is covered. We've had that in writing. I don't think we've gotten in writing the sports lessons yet. That's probably a great question for the Hope office. If so, is there a way for the person or persons to be added to the approved list of vendors? Yes, you're asking it correctly. Jennifer Blair, great job. So you want to know about adding in sports lessons. I don't know that we've gotten that in writing yet, but it is something that we should get in writing because it does say that actually, like in your terms and conditions as a parent, you actually say, yes, I will provide my child with opportunities for extracurricular activities, including sports. So that's a great question for the Hope office, and let us know what you find out. Reach out to them, Hope Scholarship WV at wvsto.org. com. Is that right? I don't know. Jen or Jessica can drop that email address in the comments, because that would be the correct pathway. And then as far as them becoming an approved vendor, hopescholarshipwv.com, education service providers, click on the link, create a provider account, and follow the steps. If you've got any questions on that, feel free to reach out. If my child will be 5 in May and planning to apply for Hope IIP, will we apply this next school year or wait until she's 6? I love this question. When do you want your child, Taylor, to have their kindergarten year? That would be the answer I would give you, is that you as the parent are in the best position to make the decision for your child. And so do you want that to happen this year? Turning 5 in May, so eligible for public kindergarten, meaning eligible for the Hope Scholarship. And so you could choose, do you want that to happen this year, or maybe not ready, and so you want to wait until the following year? The reality is that if you choose this coming year to be their kindergarten year, then you will have an assessment due. That following, spring of 2024, you would have an assessment due. So, which could be a compilation of their work. Are you doing letter identification and sound? Are you ready to start more formal instruction and be able to put together a review or have them tested? And so it's really up to you. And do you want their kindergarten year? Because you have some options there, whether you want to do it this year or you want to wait until the next year. So that's on you. If you want to do it this year, you'll apply between March and May 15th. The Treasurer's Office has asked that everybody hold on to your NOIs until March 1st. We have been overwhelmed with people asking about going ahead and submitting their notices of intent to get those WEVIS numbers before March 1st. Some have already submitted them. Our county boards are working incredibly hard in collaboration with the Treasurer's Office and the Department of Education to try to get 22, 23 accounts where they need to be. And so I really want us to do all that we can to not add work to any of them. So be very mindful that you've got time. It's okay. There's no pressing issue for you to get that WEVIS number for your rising kindergartner. What you'll do is you'll submit a notice of intent in the column that says WEVIS. You'll put eligible kindergartner. You'll submit that to the county March 1st. Some counties have you go to a school to complete the process or contact the school counselor to get a WEVIS. Some counties do it themselves. Some it takes a couple days. Some it takes more than a couple days. You've got to keep in mind, in the state of West Virginia, you've got 55 counties, and they're within their authority to have procedures to do things they want to do. I do know that the Treasurer's Office is working very hard to communicate with the Department of Education to make sure that your county boards know what they need to know. But I would just ask that you be really gracious with them, as this is a new program and things are trying to get up and running. Just be mindful that we're all doing our best and trying to make sure that these kids are supported and get what they need. So you'll submit that notice of intent. I personally like to email that and ask for a response back. We saw this year a lot of confusion around NOIs. People emailed them and never got a response back. You as the parent are the responsible party to make sure that they have received that notice of intent. So it's not just dropping something off. A lot of people will mail them certified and get the receipt. We still have seen that they say they didn't get them. So, and I'm not saying that's malicious. It could just be, it's lost or what have you. But I highly recommend emailing that and getting a reply back to show that it has been received. That allows you to have, to be able to demonstrate that it was submitted. And we have a directory that we are pretty proud of, that keeps the information for the contact that each county has. Sometimes it's an attendance director, sometimes it is not. So we have that contact information. We'll provide you with that. You'll submit a notice of intent. You'll write incoming kindergartner under that WEBIS column. You'll put down whether you're choosing the individualized instructional program or you're using the a school pathway. You'll complete that and you'll submit that. You'll get a WEBIS number, and that is what you will need to actually create your account into the EMA portal and submit that application. March 1st, people. All right. I know I've seen this answer, says Jess, but I cannot remember what I need to do. Our son will be eligible for kindergarten. How do I get him his student number? Prophetic. I just told you. All right, so there's all that as far as getting the number. We talked about assessments, portfolio reviews, standardized tests. I was talking about that. So we do have a list of reviewers that we will give you guys, and you can communicate with them about your assessment. That's going to need to be submitted by June 8th. And then that goes on to the Department of Education. Your county is responsible for turning that into the Department of Education. Instruct in the 5 subjects, assess in the 5 subjects. Testing, CHUV, deadline February 4th. WVHEA, I'm not as familiar with WVHEA. They use Terra Nova. They have their website has a ton of information. I'm not sure if they are assessing for Hope Scholars. That would be a question for them. So you may want to reach out to WVHEA and see if they are assessing Hope Scholars. And then Seton testing. So we'll get you, if you just email me, like I said, I typed up a whole email about this and we can get that to you. All right, so I wanted to do just a little thought on assessment, whether you're using a portfolio review or you're using a standardized test. So again, I've been doing this 16 years. There were opinions that I held so strongly. In the beginning, there were hills that I would have died on. And maybe now I don't necessarily see things exactly that same way. So when we first started homeschooling, we just used the standardized testing assessment, tested with CHUV at a site in Raleigh County. And my kids loved it, looked forward to it. They got to pack their little lunch, be with their little friends, sharpen their little pencils, fill in their little bubbles. Well, I should say my eldest, who's a ridiculously gifted test taker. In fact, like if you know me at all and you've heard me talk about schooling Ethan, his senior year, he tested after not actually allowing me to educate him. His last 2 years, he worked full time as in an office and in an attorney's office for another day, but I still required him to take his annual test to be compliant with the law. And he would knock it out of the park, even though he wasn't studying at home with me. And I would secretly pray that I wanted him to do terrible so he would like learn his lesson in life. But he's just a great test taker, right? Doesn't get nervous. And so he always loved it. My second born does not love testing. And so early on, we felt like it was super important that she have that skill set. And now she's in cosmetology school and she's having to take assessments. And, it's super important that she has the skill set to be able to do that. And so my personal take has been that even if a child struggles with testing, you may consider going ahead and having them exercise that skill and grow comfortable with testing, even if you decide to not submit that test as their assessment. You could still have it done and then use a portfolio review if you feel like that's a more fair reflection of their academic year. So that's one option. The other thing about portfolio reviews from the philosophical standpoint is that they're just beautiful. The thing about educating your own children or being the one behind facilitating their education. And I say this knowing that I now have someone who's hired to instruct my children who works here in our home with us. But the beautiful part of homeschooling or educating at home with the IIP is you just have a front row seat to all the things, and you'll build memories that you just they're just so cherished. And I have memories with my older two, and we have jokes that just could not have come any other way. And I get it. I get public school, I get private school. I have a very holistic approach to all the things. But I am a homeschool mom. That's who I am. That's how we've done things. And a portfolio review allows you to actually bring that all together and really show your flavor, if you will, the way that your family has embraced education. And so I like to recommend both the skill through the testing. Let's face it, there are many ways to assess, right? I always say, like, my favorite way to assess is through conversation, because that's the only true way to assess someone's mastery or assimilation of information, is to actually have a conversation with them and be able to ask questions and see what answers they're able to provide. But for demonstration or for purposes of having to submit something, it is either that written assessment or the portfolio review. And so I would just encourage you to not get too caught up and feel like it is your grade as the parent, or your child's, grade. Like, we're not reducing our children down to a score, to a number, to a performance. Education is just bigger than that. So there's my little philosophical bit for the day. Couple more questions. I hope that this is made available for the homeschool community. There are 2 bills that would open up Hope Scholarship to those currently under the private school or homeschool exemption. We have a post about that. If we apply in March, will the scholarship come next year? Well, a couple questions. Are you eligible? That would be the first thing. So you'd have to meet the eligibility requirements for Hope Scholarship. Submit an application March through May 15th. If you were eligible before, meaning you were eligible in the 21-22 academic year and you missed the application window, then you must apply March 1st through May 15th, and you're applying for the 23-24 academic year. So if you were eligible before and you missed it, you must wait and apply March 1st through May 15th, and you're applying for 23-24. If you were not eligible in 21-22, leading up to July 6th, but you have since become eligible by enrolling in public school and completing and attending 45 consecutive calendar days, and you become eligible, you submit a request to apply with the treasurer's office, with the Hope team, and that submission will get vetted, and they'll make sure that you have that the child has attended and completed and shown up for the 45 consecutive calendar days without missing over 10% absences. Then they'll send you a link to apply, and that can take place within this current 22-23 academic year. You can apply, and once awarded, then you have satisfied that, and you may pull your child from their public school. That's for the newly eligible. So if you have a rising kindergartner, March 1st through May 15th, do not submit your notice of intent per the treasurer's office until after March 1st. Where do I find the list of providers at this time? Question of the day. I don't know, Jennifer Blair. We don't have one. We don't have a list of providers. We've been asking. We don't have one. You can ask the provider if they are set up. If you are in the EMA portal and you have an approved kid, you can go in and search providers. You can search My Scholar Shop if you have a portal set up to go in, but there is no list. That's an unsatisfying answer, but it is the answer. The NOI we send to get the number is not the same as the HOPE NOI we send after approval, right? Great question. So, two-step process for HOPE scholarship. And the order in which you complete the process depends on if you are a rising kindergartner or you don't have a WEBUS number, or if you are currently in school and have a WEBUS number. So rising kindergartner, no WEBUS number, submits NOI after March 1st, gets WEBUS number, applies. Process complete. Waits, gets awarded, process complete. If you already have a WEBUS number, so you're already in school, apply, confirm eligible, awarded, then submission of NOI. So again, rising kindergartner submits NOI to get a WEBUS number, applies once eligibility is confirmed and it is awarded, then you're good to go. Already have a WEBUS number, already in school, apply, create a portal account at EMA, apply, March 1st, apply, once awarded, submits NOI to complete the process. And on the NOI stipulates that you're going to either do the individualized instructional program or you are going to use a school for your HOPE scholarship pathway. There's that. We're coming up on 40 minutes. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is curriculum. And so I get a lot of questions about what curriculum I use, what methods I use. So I just thought I'd kind of throw out some, a very like broad, I don't know. I've been up too long already, not enough coffee. Overview, that's the word I'm looking for, an overview on some different approaches that you may want to look into further. Kathy Duffy is a reviewer of curriculum, and I've been paying attention to what Kathy Duffy says for a long time, so you may want to look into that, Kathy with a C, and see if you can get some information about specific curriculum that you're looking at through her website. So with that being said, I personally was introduced to the classical tradition of educating, although I was introduced to the modern interpretation of classical education around 2010. I've since deconstructed from what I was introduced to, and our family now does our best to be influenced by and to utilize the principles of Charlotte Mason. So if you want to lose yourself in a beautiful rabbit trail that will absolutely transform your life and the lives of your children, Charlotte Mason. You can see these pink books right here. These are the volumes, Charlotte Mason volumes. And so if you really want to geek out, let's just have a whole conversation. I don't know, y'all come down to Mercer County and we'll just talk about Charlotte Mason and sit around my living room. But that being said, it is a very holistic approach. And a lot of people who need something more open and go are going to have a harder time with that. Like I said, don't be fooled. I now work full time. There's somebody else instructing my children. A lot of people are looking for school at home. Okay. And I don't knock that. You may have a child that really does function well in like, here's my workbook. Here's my lesson on the DVD. Let me complete this. Let me move on. So more traditional open and go box curriculum would be a Becca. Memoria Press has a great box set from well, from Memoria Press, but from the classical tradition. So Abeka's more traditional school, and Memoria Press is more of the classical tradition. But again, open and go kind of box set curriculum. I looked on my scholar shop and I did see that Abeka has added some of their upper level grades. If you guys want people to participate, work with the Hope team, work with EMA, and work with them and reach out to be sure that they understand what the program entails and help them to get signed up so that you can use your Hope funds with them. So Charlotte Mason, those are more traditional. Some math. Look, right now, like I have two favorite math curriculum providers. Right Start Math. It's what we've used for the last several years here in our home. And I know they are actively trying to get up on my scholar shop. It is going to be a little intensive. It's not so much open and go. There are a lot of games and manipulatives. So it will depend on how you want to approach that, how much you as the instructor want to be involved in the schooling. Okay. But Right Start and then Beast Academy. I'm a huge fan of the guys at Art of Problem Solving. So Beast Academy is their elementary curriculum, and Art of Problem Solving moves up through middle school and high school. They are approved. They're already in my scholar shop. They are fantastic. Teaching your child to read can be tricky. I like to direct traffic to experts who actually know things about teaching your child to read. Somehow I've taught 3 children how to read. We used How to Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, I think, for the older ones. For my 11-year-old, I used Memoria Press's First Start Reading. We loved that. It was great. And I'll probably just continue using that with my little guy, my 6-year-old too. I'm a pretty laid back educator in that it really is, are they showing signs that they're ready for it? So if you have questions specifically about curriculum, I just want to encourage you to find some homeschool groups, ask some questions. The Unsocialized group, Kathy Krause's group on Facebook, I mean, I feel like they have compiled so many valuable resources into one space. So I would really lean into that. You're not going to necessarily find that information in the Few, right? In the Fuse group. We have the regional groups. We might start trying to build that out a little bit in the regional groups, but that's where you're going to find more of your curriculum specific information. I feel like it's in Kathy Krause's, the Unsocialized Homeschoolers would be the place to ask curriculum specific questions. Granted, you need to understand you're a Hope Scholar, not a homeschooler, yada, yada, right? You already got that. Math, yeah. For curriculum, I would just say search those avenues. I mean, if you really want my opinion on something, you're welcome to email me. Everybody knows I'll give you free opinions like candy. All right, another question. My son has been awarded the scholarship for 22-23, but the funds are not showing in the EMA portal. When can that be expected? Hey, Mitch, good to see you. That's exciting news. Email me and let's figure out who you need to talk to and where we should be directing your question. Okay, lastly, a little just bit of sanity for educating at home. You know, I like to say, a friend of mine once called it the anchor of your day, like the anchors. And so we were talking advice on scheduling and such like many moons ago. So I'm just going to throw this out here. If you're new to this, if you're new to educating at home, I used to actually have like a planner and I would plan my days. Now I just like wake up and come in the office and just my days are planned by all this insanity. But I used to look at our weeks and think, okay, when do we go out for music lessons? When is the baby napping? When is our co-op? What day are we getting together? And I would put all of those on the calendar, and those would kind of be the anchors, right? And then I would kind of build from them. And so it might be like lunch or meals could be an anchor. And so it might be like the 15 minutes before lunch while I'm getting stuff ready. I'm putting on an audio book and we listen to this week's chapter of Story of the World, and then we discuss it during lunch. When you think about subjects, you can think about content-based subjects and skill-based subjects, meaning math, language arts as you get older, English grammar, foreign language. Those require a certain skill level, and it's harder, not that it's impossible, but it's harder to do specific instruction if you've got a fifth grader and a kindergartner, and you're trying to do math at the same time, right? Because it requires a skill set. Same with upper level sciences, foreign language. It's hard to teach the conjugation of Latin verbs alongside somebody who's just learning like Latin declensions for nouns. And so skill set subjects tend to need you to be more individualized with that instruction. Whereas content-based subjects, you can kind of group them together. So history, science, lower elementary science, literature, poetry, picture study. This is why I'm still so passionate about our hybrid homeschool group on Tuesdays, where I get to go and they pull me back in to the classroom and the beauty of educating children and being just immersed in all of it. But in that, those are the content based. That's easier to do together. So maybe you're listening to Story of the World and you're talking about that during lunch. And then once lunch is over, they're giving you an oral narration of what you just covered. And so I would encourage you to think about the anchors in your days and kind of build out from that. And if you have a student who needs that more specific instruction and you do have a toddler at home, it may be that, during nap time is when you actually try to get in and dig in on those subjects. Also, people will ask me about like the calendar year, what we do as far as when we start. My family doesn't start school until after Labor Day. Actually, in our community, our hybrid homeschool, but we start easing in around the middle of August with math, language arts, and try to build up into that to start out the academic year. So if you're planning for the next year, that's just kind of what we do, and we wrap up in May. The IIP doesn't require that you have a specific number of days that you instruct the child. It really is a beautiful way to have some resources to educate your child at home. The distinction is you must assess every single year and you must submit it every single year as a Hope Scholar, whereas traditional homeschoolers, it's only 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 11th, and even that might change sometime soon. So I've answered all the questions. I was going to try to stay around 45 minutes. I'm at 48. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully we answered some questions about Hope Scholarship, answered some questions about the individualized instructional program and assessment and instruction and choosing curriculum. If you're confused about shopping from a provider or shopping from My Scholar Shop, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help or direct you to the appropriate resources. I'm Jamie Buckland with the West Virginia Few. We exist to remove barriers, guide parents, support providers through the transformation of K-12 education in the Mountain State. Thanks so much for tuning in. I look forward to talking with you more. And just remember, the best way to get an answer is to email Jamie, Jamie, @wvfue.org. You guys have a great afternoon.